from East Africa. One of these current trendy topics is about the Indian Oceans and Ugandans posting pictures about Makerere University, Indian Ocean branch, and all kinds of things and whatever. Like, does it cost a lot to give Ugandans access or territory of Kenya to the Indian Ocean? So how did we come up to this point? It all started last week, mid-November, when I think the president of Uganda, His Excellency General Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, spoke about access to the Kenyan Indian Ocean. So for those who do not know the geography of East Africa, Indian Ocean happens to be the main ocean on the eastern side of East Africa. Basically, it's the only ocean there. So for the people in the inland, for the countries in the interior of East Africa, they have to go through Kenya or Tanzania to access the port. So the talk is about access between Uganda, that is at the west of Kenya, accessing the East African port, which territorially is under the governance of Kenya. So the president made remarks saying Ugandans are entitled to access to the Indian Ocean, something that Kenyans do not deny, but at a certain price. Why? Because they have to charge the prices for court fees, port fees, and basically duty, sea duty or seaport duties, for those who know about revenues and stuff like that and economics. So that kind of caused a storm because some people began to put word around that Ugandans are going to attack Kenyans, or the Ugandan government is going to attack the Kenyan government and take off territory, grab territory with access to the Indian seaport, Indian Ocean seaport, Indian Ocean port, so that Ugandans have a chunk of land that is assigned basically for Ugandans without Kenyans having authority over it. So the news did its rounds, and people think that Uganda is going to fight, like the armies of the two countries are going to collide. And if only the first son and the chief of defense forces, the current chief of defense forces, General Muhoozi, had not made comments that it only takes 8 days for the Ugandan army or for him to attack Kenya and make a route between Mombasa and Uganda. That is according to allegations in the media, social media. How I missed that, I think I was asleep. These days I'm an early sleeper. So here now Kenyans begin to respond. Kenyans say, it seems the government of Uganda, the current government of Uganda, forgets that the Kenyans helped them a lot to get into power. And that is the situation right now. And the Kenyans are saying, no, Museveni even had offices, the president of Uganda, before he overthrew the government of Uganda, the previous government. He said he had offices in Nairobi. And the Kenyan army officers used to help him with intelligence, and sometimes they would drop him via the air to Luwero to join his rebels, which were the NRA rebels at that time. They used to be called, I've forgotten the other name, but they were then called the NRA, the National Resistance Army Rebels, who were fighting the government then, and other logistical support. And to be honest with you, there's even a gentleman called Lee Njiru, who is on YouTube, and he gives a whole narrative of how he was personally involved in Museveni's projects while taking over the government, which he mentions a lot of things. And then majority of Kenyans say if Ugandans want rights at Mombasa, Kenyans also need rights in the oil drilling sector in Western Uganda, because currently Ugandans are actually drilling oil in Western Uganda, the Albertine region. And they also need rights over the Uganda national parks, the game parks, because they are using the port as a source of revenue to run the Kenyan economy. So if Uganda wants rights over that, Kenyans also want rights over Ugandan economic sectors, including mineral rights for mining. And if Tanzania is joining in support of Uganda, then Tanzania should also be willing to let the Kenyan government also have rights in Tanzania over the mineral sector and other areas as well. So that is not just a one-sided thing. It has to be an open East African kind of setup. So that's where the East African community talk comes into place. And then they have to open borders, and they don't have to charge anything or ask for visas or any restrictions or movements or trade between countries of East Africa, majorly Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania. So, and then they explain that the reason why the East African community has collapsed, yet it used to happen in the post-colonial era, just after they had got independence. After these East African countries had just got independence, they had the East African community. So they would use a single currency in Kenya, the same single currency in Uganda, and the same single currency in Tanzania. But they have been having a talk of the East African community for about 10 years, and nothing so far has materialized. So the Kenyans are saying that the reasons why this has been not happening is because there are some people who are probably ruling East Africa, and they feel they need to control the resources and personalize the rule or have their families in power for long. And they kept on quoting the Mustard Seed book, which was written by the president of Uganda, his Kaguta Museveni, where he said, in his book called The Mustard Seed, he said that the problem of Africa is because leaders want to stay long in power. So, and then the Kenyans use that and they say, no, Museveni himself, General Museveni, His Excellency himself, has spent about 40 years in power. 40 years? Yeah, they claim he has spent 40 years in power since 1985-86 up to now 2025. So, and they were claiming that he should have followed that book called The Mustard Seed that he wrote, the opening quote. So that has been the talk. As a matter of fact, to be honest, I know about Kenya's contributions because I had it. I heard about my dad, how he came from France, and then he went to Nairobi, and the Kenya Army commander gave him 5 vans with weapons and soldiers to help him carry the weapons right to the front line of the NRA. That was in about 1984-85. And he personally moved those weapons through Busia and then Lake Victoria, and then he connected to the other side of Uganda using using boats. So that is one person I know of who directly benefited, or not really benefited. He got arms from Kenya to come and fight for Museveni, and he took them to then the leader of the army was called, one of the leaders was called Rujema. Yeah, so that's the information I have. I know that one I've had from a family member. So I don't know how other people have also been relating to that, But according to Linjiro, he says that Kenyans put in a lot to help Museveni come into power. So these threats are not good, and they should end, because Ugandans and Kenyans have been living as one community, as brothers, as one family. Basically, the East Africans, even if they have differences because of their leadership. And the problem that we are kind of currently facing in East Africa is that there's no roadmap, there is no clear path to the realization of the East African community, how it was just after the independence. So that's the situation right now. And then if you go into weighing the armies, yes, Ugandan army has been a lot in so many conflicts. So much, it is said, up to Central African Republic. Sometimes they intervene in Sudan, Southern Sudan. Sometimes they go into Congo. They are actively trying to flush out rebels in Congo. And then other areas like they were involved in Somalia. And yeah, the Ugandan army kind of has a lot of experience. We don't know about their size and stuff like that. But statistically, when it comes to weapons, Kenyans are far superior when it comes to firepower. They have better weapons, they have more weapons, and they have so many collaborations with the Western world, because the army bases in Kenya, like the US Army base, and other countries also have army bases there. And about Uganda, most of those people might have pulled out. So, and Kenya is being seen as is of big interest to the West, because there are companies and organizations that can only be found in Nairobi. So if such Western powers have offices and certain collaborations with Kenya, I believe they will do everything possible to protect their interests in Kenya. And they have farms, as in farms, real farms, like, and projects in Kenya, most of them. And remember, Kenya has also discovered gold, I think, and Uganda also has a lot of gold. So if there's to be war, if there's to be a conflict between Uganda and Kenya, I think Tanzania may not join it. Why? Because of the situation is a bit of fragile right now. Or it could be leaning to the side of Uganda because of the East African oil pipeline, or other collaborations between Uganda and Kenya, which might be stronger than between Kenya and Tanzania. East African oil pipeline between Uganda and Tanzania. So could boost the kind of unity or kind of alliance between them. But you never know. When it comes to geopolitics, anything can change, because there are people who actually control Africa more than the leaders you see in Africa. So much that people keep claiming that African leaders are just puppets of the West, in East Africa or in Africa. So we are independent, but still kind of controlled. That's what people claim. So the question arises, what would happen if Uganda and Kenya actually went to war? I do not see that happening anytime soon. Why? Because there are so many Kenyans in Uganda, and there are many Ugandans in Kenya, also in the rest of East Africa. It's a kind of cross-community, cross-border community. And they fight for rights to the Kenyan port of Mombasa, or Malindi, or wherever it is on the East African coastline. I think that one is uncalled for. Why? Because there's a lot coming up. There are big projects coming up. They're trying to connect the East African Railway through, of course, that has already reached Nairobi, through Uganda to the rest of Africa, even to the Congo and to the Southern Sudan. So it's kind of tricky. It's fragile. And apart from that, the issue that is a problem currently seen is when the big man, the CDF of Uganda, General Muhoozi, is he general? Afande, forgive me, but the CDF, Chief of Defense Forces of Uganda, say that he can attack Kenya and within 8 days capture and ensure Uganda has control over the port of East Africa. Where that came from, I'm still looking for those. For those who are in Twitter, I can always understand. You can look for General Muhoozi Kainerugaba. General Muhoozi, the one young general, under 50, I guess. So, is he 50? Okay, I think he's under 50. He's still a young man, vibrant, and very, very active in the geopolitics of East Africa. So, that is their fear. They say based on that, and previously he had talked of that he was able to overthrow Kenya within 2 weeks. So all these kind of things are kind of putting the two countries at edge. And Kenyans are not taking this lightly. But also they are saying they're not afraid of Ugandans going to war with them because they are ready to fight to defend their sovereignty. They don't want to be bullied. And remember, there used to be talks after the elections of the current president of Kenya that Uganda had a hand in his winning of elections, and that might not be the case because people talk, people gossip, a lot of talk about, anybody can say anything. This is social media, and I'm just basing on allegations. I don't have concrete proof about this, and there was a lot of talk that Ruto is a puppet of the Ugandan government, and that's why he's using yellow, and he derived the yellow from Uganda, and he was in Uganda just before they went into the elections. Even went for a cadet passing parade. He attended it, and somebody had snapped him. I mean, all those kind of things. But you see, that's all social media allegations. So, yeah. But as a matter of fact, do you think Uganda is really going to fight with Kenya? And, or is this just another hot air? Which would be good because it's good to promote peace between East Africans. Wow. I'm seeing comments coming in here. Keep putting in the comments. Do you think Uganda can really go to war with Kenya? Because Uganda is a landlocked country and depends a lot on Kenya when it comes to the exports. And the question is, why is it has to be Kenya? Why not Tanzania? Tanzania has a lot of big land, I think. So I think Ugandans would negotiate with Tanzanians to kind of have a land kind of stuff, kind of bridge a land connection to the East African Ocean. I don't think it would really hurt Tanzania. Tanzania is like 5 times the size of Uganda. 4 or 5 times the size of Uganda. So, is it too much for asking? The Tanzanian president should be put there. Because Kenya, I think we need to leave Kenya. Those are brothers. And the fact is, I know their development they are about 30 years ahead of Uganda in terms of development. Yeah, Kenya is, Nairobi is 30 years ahead of Kampala in terms of development. I'm being honest with you guys here. I've been through all the cities of Africa, most of the cities of Africa, and even through the East African cities. But Nairobi is 30 years ahead of Uganda. And I remember those days, Kenyans, I was told by my great grannies and people like that Kenyans used to come to Kampala because they were so impressed, and go to Nairobi because they are so impressed by the rate of development. And apart from that, there are these allegations that when Amin was developing Uganda, he built houses in Nairobi, in the streets of Nairobi. Actually, some of the houses in Nairobi belong to the Ugandan government. But I hear when Amin lost power, Idi Amin, the dictator, someone else took over the houses. But they are no longer under Uganda, they are under some names, big names. Those are the allegations. So, and then remember during those riots by the Gen Zs in Nairobi, one of those Ugandan houses was attacked. Either the Ugandan embassy or one of those Ugandan houses was attacked and burnt. Yeah, and things like that. And, to be honest with you, is it really worth it? Is it really worth talking about this conflict? Because we shouldn't really act like that. Let's be honest. Let me make you laugh. There are people who know the history better. They say ice cream and fast foods began in Nairobi before they came to Kampala. Ice cream, this is, I'm talking about ice cream, the normal ice cream and the fast foods. You see the chips, chicken and stuff like that. They started in Nairobi, in East Africa, before coming to Kampala. And someone really talks about that always when they wanted to eat chips and chicken, they had to travel to Nairobi to eat chips and chicken. And now Ugandans have chips and chicken. We have KFC, we have kind of stuff. And also we have some brands in Kenya. We have some brands in Kenya which originated from Uganda. For instance, CJ. The CJ. You know the CJ? It's like the KFC run by Africans. Yeah. So, and then there are others coming up. And is it really worth? Let's go to statistics. Go to Google and type Kenyans firepower versus Ugandans firepower. And then you see the equipment, the technology, the kind of force that these guys have. Kenyans have machinery. They are well trained, very well trained. We let's not forget about that. Let's not forget Kenyans are very well trained, but they don't like to make a show about everything. They don't want to brag about certain things. Yet Ugandans are so experienced in warfare. They're kind of daring. But also remember, Tanzanians' force is so much respected in East Africa. Yet also they don't talk about that kind of stuff. So the East African community is basically a powerhouse of military. Even if, we have some people we need to respect who are still alive, and we need to celebrate them. And because they're our elders and they have a lot of experience, and that's where Museveni comes in, the General Museveni, and I respect him a lot. Hey, but also I need to send a message. You see, this is not to shame anybody, but you see, reaching the president of Uganda is a very hard thing. Yet reaching the president of Kenya is something very simple, because they have systems in place that can make you reach the president and communicate easily. Okay, I was trying, for instance, to look for compensation. I was like, hey, my dad contributed a lot to the Ugandan government. He left life in France, came back, he took 5 vans with a lot of weapons in there, and was helped by the Kenyan forces, soldiers, to move them to the front line to Rejema. And actually he was there. This guy, my dad, was beat by ants, red ants. They used to beat them. They had snakes. They had a lot of issues, mosquitoes, malaria, and stuff like that. And this guy was kind of very well trained. Was very well trained, as in was one of those high flying graduates of the Sandhurst Military Academy. So he brought in a lot when he came to the front line to fight for the government. And he has never been compensated. And I've been pursuing that for a long time. And I even have letters to the President's Office of Uganda trying to ask for that. And I've never seen anything. I even went to the Ministry of Defense and Veteran Affairs, and they told me, well, you can't do anything unless you go and shout during the president's election campaign. I'm like, wow. The other 2 Kenyans were arrested when they went to Bobi Wine's campaigns. Won't I be arrested in Uganda and be locked up? So we kind of fear these things. And by the way, if you talk about those arrests and torture, one time I was tortured. One time I was tortured because I had lost my identification and stuff like that. So these guys never bothered asking me certain things. I had just a copy, I think, of the ID. I even don't know these guys. They came in an unnumbered car, a car without number plates drawn. I don't know how they had been following me. And then they just grabbed me, man. You see these fingers were peeled. They were peeled off, these. I just gave up. These were peeled off. Those. Why? Because they thought I was a spy. I don't know whatever they were thinking, but that was really bad. I was only trying to reach the president. Why? Because all means had failed. So people advising me, you need to go and during the president's campaign, and then you jump there and then you shout, "Hey, my dad, he brought you 5 vans of guns and you've never mentioned anything about it. You've never even remembered this family. You used to own land in Kololo, plot 52, Malcolm X, whatever. You've never, and those were some of the agreements you made in France when you met in Paris at one of those other gentlemen, Henry Kajura's home. When you met him 3 times, you've never remembered us. I'm his son. I'm his family. I mean, I can't just go and do that. But for now, I just gave up about that. But please, whatever it is, let us remember that Kenyans helped Uganda to have the kind of rule they have right now, to have to enjoy the rule of His Excellency, one of Africa's best leaders ever, actually one of the world's best leaders surviving right now, General Yoweri Museveni. He's one of the best with the best ideologies currently. It's just that this conflict with that talk needs to be put down. And I think Kenyans are saying that the president of Uganda needs to apologize to Kenyans. I don't know about that because they know better. I was not there when certain things were put in place. I cannot claim, I cannot put my foot down on that. But, put in your comments. This is a live thing, and you're talking to someone. By the way, let me show you something you guys have never seen. This is called a mustard seed. This one. See that? See my fingers, the size of my fingers? See that thing in the bottom? That little seed is smaller than a millet grain. It's about the size of a millet grain. That's the mustard seed that grows into a tree. So His Excellency, the President of Uganda, wrote his book based on that, when he said that African leaders, their problem is they stay long in power. Yeah. And he's right. But I think also that other leaders are so weak, that's why they can never come into power. If there is nobody stronger than you who you can entrust your country to, then I think you have no reason to leave the seat. So sometimes it's on our side that we really need to mentor. As leaders, we really need to mentor. We really need to mentor people who can come and replace us in power. Because anything can happen. Anybody can take over power. There can be a coup. You saw what happened in Madagascar. You saw what happened in Tanzania. You know what has been happening in Liberia and Congo. Actually, Congo is so close. What has been happening in Congo and places like that. If we really sober up and say, okay, right now, the East African community has failed. People who have East African passports, they need to disband them. Let countries go back to their sovereign status and charge their duties and be independent and live their lives. But what are we going to do with those who are living in other countries or where other countries individually contributed to other countries' independence or liberation or stuff like that, like me? What about people like me? So please, if anybody can see this video, please tag His Excellency, the President of Uganda, because I'm speaking facts here a little bit. The rest of them are allegations. Yeah, I'm one of the people who has really been seeking to see him. So, concerning, the contribution of my father in the liberation war, and have never been compensated, and we have never recovered our homes that were lost during the liberation. So, as a matter of fact, we really need to see and think about that. Otherwise, I'll have to go back into another country and just chill and call it a day. But I thought, just like he fought for his family, His Excellency, and I'm proud of him, he was open enough to openly say that he owes no man anything. Whatever he's doing it for his family and for himself. So did my father and other people's fathers do for their families. Except there's one family that has been forgotten in all through, that has never received any award, no medal, no honor, no compensation, no reward, and their father, like mine, kind of suffered for this. So yeah, so you drop your comments there, make all your comments, but I want to tell Ugandans, please do not rush about saying that, and you talking about the Ugandan conquest of Kenya, because this is not going to be a Ukraine-Russian kind of scenario. We are all kind of excited because of what is going on in Russia and Ukraine. We shouldn't want that. You don't know what warfare is. When you go on the front line, your best friend gets killed, they get shot, and life is not a movie. You know, we have had a lot of movies, we watch a lot of movies on Netflix and stuff like that, so we think that's what guns are all about. So when you hear some shots around, we are all kind of crazy. And sometimes, you know, when they arrest people, this is not to justify anything. Sometimes when they arrest people, these kind of arrests that are made, and people are kind of tortured and left to live. Some of them die. But sometimes governments do certain things to really keep their hold on power, and we cannot do anything about it. And instead of making noise on social media, maybe you need to kind of put your face somewhere and say something about it. Maybe you could tag me next time you are having a podcast, and I'll give you more comments about this. But war is nothing we should be proud about, because that is not a civilian rule, it's not democracy, that is conflict and that is warfare. I think there are forces at play that really want to take care of Kenya, or want to de-develop Kenya, or that Kenya or Nairobi is a threat, or Ugandan's development is a threat. So they're trying to make sure Uganda and Kenya be at conflict so that they do their arms sales. Because the people who benefit out of a conflict are usually the Western companies that deal in arms. So they can really fuel and give in a lot of wrong intel. And any little, if you fall for this rubbish, you know, there's going to be a lot of arms sales and arms rush between Uganda and Kenya. And then there's going to be a lot of conflict that will never end. But the conflict between Uganda and Kenya will take not just 8 days, like the general said. They are likely to take about 6 months, to be honest with you. Yeah, because I'm seeing a lot of things at play here. I'm seeing a lot of things. And it will cause a whole lot of confusion between the East African community. Actually, the whole of East Africa will be under confusion. Congo, Sudan, Kenya, Somalia, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, and a lot of other, Central African Republic, Chad, all these countries here are there's going to be a need for a person who can be able to control these countries. And to be honest with you, His Excellency General Museveni has been able to try to put most of these countries under check. And even if the opposition, most of these oppositions in other countries allege that most of those presidents are puppets of His Excellency General Yoweri Museveni. So I don't know about that, but that's the strength of a leader. I think leaders really have to develop character, discipline, and also their firepower to really keep their countries safe. To be honest with you, I had walks in Kampala, and the country is safe. Uganda is safe. Kampala is safe. Someone can walk in the middle of the night. I mean, there are thieves, a little bit of iron bar thugs you can meet here and there, a little bit of pavers, killing of people, robbing of phones, those petty thieves who kill. But that is in any other country. Even in the US, you can find such people who rob and kill. But largely, Uganda, the security is tight and it's strong, and there is a lot of peace in Uganda. And I think Museveni has really did a good job to try to instill peace in Uganda. That's not something easy. Even if we are yet to see the East African community, the dream, it may never come to pass. It's most likely never to happen, in my view. if the East African community happens, there's going to be a lot of peace and a big force and a very mighty army. And I do not see the West allowing that to take place. Not on their watch. Forget about that. You can do anything as you want. You can talk of anything. But you'll never realize that. Of course, even you see the talk of Africa as an African Union, we have the biggest population in terms of continental. And we have the biggest resources, minerals, and all that kind of stuff in terms of continent versus continent. So we should forget about the East African community or the African community at large. We just need to forget about that talk. And everybody needs to go back to their country and concentrate, develop, and do what they have to do. Yeah, I hope you're enjoying your cup of coffee as you're watching this. But I need to, wow, I can't read right now these comments. Wow. My site keeps playing on me depending on what I've just taken. Some bit of coffee might help me. Where's this waiter? Wait, yeah, sorry, I'm on live. Huh? Waiter, can you, yeah. So, yeah, been trying to check that. Hey, by the way, I'm truly East African because there are people who have had people like me. They have seen people like me in Kenya, in Tanzania, in Rwanda, in Burundi, in Congo, who talk exactly like me and who look like me. I mean, if you know you're my twin, please reach out to me. Huh? Reach out to me. Just inbox this. I mean, just send a message and I see how I can meet you because I don't want to be mistaken for another person who is from another country in East Africa, yet just where I am. Yeah, I'm doing this live. Huh? So Ugandans, please forget about going to fight with Kenyans. Kenyans will beat you. Okay? Kenyans will beat you. Let me speak to you in your own accent. Actually, today I was using the Ugandan accent. I was not using the Kenyan, not the Tanzanian, not the Rwandese, or the other accent from South Africa or wherever it is. Let me be honest with you in your own accent. Today I'm using the Ugandan accent. Kenyans will beat you in war. Do not dare. And remember, you have assets in Kenya that you do not want to lose. Just as Kenyans have assets in Uganda. Yeah, we know about the petrol stations and of the big men of Kenya who are with so many petrol stations in Uganda, so many all over the place. So we know about that. And this at this moment, I wish to talk about Raila Odinga. That man tried. May his soul rest in peace. Raila's loss was a loss to the African community as a whole, because those are one of the few people who are left to rule. But I think we really need to sober up and stop all this social media stuff talk, because I'm telling you, I made my research. I compared Ugandan's firepower with the Kenyan firepower. Uganda will lose a battle. Not in a week, though. It can take like 6 months. That's my estimate. And Kenyans have a lot of people they know, just as Ugandans have a lot of people they know. Yeah. And you see, all of you are all Ugandans and Kenyans and otherwise, they're trying to, to play friends with Russia. So I don't know which of them will go for the US to support them or who will go for Russia to support them, because those people are willing to move their conflict from Ukraine to out of what is it called? Out of Middle East into East Africa. I mean, the people who just want the world to be at war. They just want conflict all the time. Yeah. And, well, for those who want to fight, I think you need to go and join the army of your respective countries and fight. My dad fought. We've never got anything out of it. So you think twice. Think twice about it. Anyway, I wish to congratulate the whole of East Africa for the peace that is kind of running right now. Si watu wa Tanzania ama watu wa Kenya ama watu wa Congo, tunashukuru sana, na watu wa Uganda, tunashukuru sana vile vile amani na uhuru ambayo tuko nayo. That's what I'm trying to say, that the peace which we are enjoying, we are so grateful in the East African community. And Congo, Uganda, Tanzania, we are so grateful as citizens, and we wish the peace goes on, but also we wish development also kind of takes place, and there is a kind of playing field and everybody has access to resources, to power, to offices, to jobs. What is killing most people is unemployment in East Africa. I mean, this is a really big deal. Most East Africans are unemployed, and most of the youth are unemployed. Yet they're the bigger people, they're the bigger population in East Africa. So any country that can come up with the game of employment, I mean, to really be okay. And you need to scrap off those employment age things. I think we really need to scrap off those employment age, because that's the problem of East Africa. You cannot compete or set your age of employment with the Western world. Those people's kids, they graduate when they're about 18, 16. Here, people in East Africa, people graduate when they are 30, 40. So you cannot set the age limit for getting employed in East Africa or in Africa is 35. Some are just finishing school at 35. Most women who had kids and basically worked hard and then kind of got back into school, all those people who are poor, then had to work their way to raise money, they entered school when they're late, so they graduated 40, 45, 50, when you guys are retiring. So we need to scrap the employment age. We need to scrap the age limit for certain public offices. People are talking about scrapping presidential age limit. We don't know about that. The only problem about that is the people are not accountable, because once they rule forever, and the state becomes a family property, and it's only one family running all houses, all the high-rise buildings in the country, or the biggest kind of piece of land in the country. So we don't want that, but at least scrap the employment age, give access and loans to all people, regardless of their age, and try to please, if you want to unite Africa, try it at your own cost, but you have Western governments who will not support that. Why? Because it's a bit tricky, yeah? It's a bit tricky. When one ruler of Africa, who is a dictator, decides to attack America or to attack Europe, I mean, it's not really good. Eh? So that, and then we need to open our borders, please. The reason why our prices or things are very expensive in Africa is because of the closed borders. Please remove those custom restrictions, remove those custom dues and charges, and let trade and let goods flow freely between East Africa or between Africa. I'm telling you, the African dream would have come a step closer, But if you want to remain in power, please remain in power. May support whoever it is. The winner takes all. Have no problem. Democracy, dictatorship, military governance, civilian governance, I mean, it's up to you. As long as I'm alive, as long as people are not killed, as long as people are safe, as long as they are not torture or arbitrary arrests without trial or without cause or just trumped up charges, let people be free. Because that's the kind of thing that I think some governments have been pushing in Africa. But I thank the governments of East Africa for at least maintaining peace and a kind of understanding between East Africans. Yeah, the dream has not come, but we are really enjoying all this kind of thing. Yeah, so please remember to comment and drop in everything. Yeah, and actually to foster peace between the East African community, I think sometimes they need to take the Kenyan army, they bring it to Uganda, and then they take the Tanzanian army, put it into Kenya, and then they take the Ugandan army and put it into Tanzania to run the forces. That's the kind of, you test your strengths. Rotate the army generals into the East African community for starters. Let the presidents remain in their domains, but let the armies. Oh, are you afraid of spying on each other? I thought they said, love your neighbors, you love yourself. Okay. If you do not trust each other, then how do you expect East Africans to trust each other? In the Ugandan accent that I'm trying to speak right now. Sitaki ongea ile accent yangu ya Kenya. Ninajua hizo vitu So like the promotion, yes? Pardon? Yeah, please subscribe, comment, inbox. We are going to come back. I mean, I can jump back on a live if you really want me to jump on a live. This is just a test to see exactly that you guys, you need to know something. I'm going to come back. I'm going to go on a live in 10 minutes. So prepare. And I'm going to talk about the East African community, the impossibilities that we should never dream about, and the possibilities that we can dream about. For now, as long as, unless Museveni, the General President Yoweri Museveni, Kaguta Museveni, His Excellency, becomes the first president of East Africa, forget about the East African community. Unless you tell him he's becoming the first president of East Africa, the first head, forget about the East African community. That one I can tell you very, very point blank, because he's the sharpest statesman and president we have currently in East Africa. The next I can really tell you is Ruto. Wow, His Excellency Ruto is a sharp. I like my president's speeches. His Excellency Ruto, I like your speeches. And I like also, you know what I like about the Tanzanian, that president of mine of Tanzania. I like her humility. You know, she had this swearing in, and she did not insist I want a big stadium. She went to the army barracks, army grounds, army field, and she was sworn in as president. She doesn't care whether the other population, basically, she's ruling by force of arms. Let's be realistic. Are we really ready for the East African communities when we are just playing such games? Okay. The first thing would be free all political prisoners. First of all, pardon them all. You can put them under house arrest or compound arrest, but free them. Yeah, let them do some businesses around. You can even lock them within the country. Don't travel out. You can let them travel. We have a strong force. For instance, in Uganda has a very, very flamboyant intelligence. They can track you anywhere. Rwanda has one of the best, actually, in East Africa. Uganda has, I think, next to Rwanda, I think. Sometimes they work together, sometimes they collide, sometimes this, sometimes I don't understand Uganda and Rwanda. Sweet bitter, I don't understand. Sometimes someone calls the other one my uncle. Sometimes they are like, hey, we are going to fight Rwanda. Sometimes, no, we shouldn't fight. This is family. It's complicated. But Rwanda has a very high intelligence network, sophisticated. Uganda has also, and Kenya also has. The advantage of Kenya is that Kenya does not reveal what it has. It keeps everything under wraps. It never reveals its abilities, even if it's lethal. Kenya's military is very lethal. Yeah. And the reason why some people really want Uganda to fight Kenya is because they don't have employment. They're idle. They're not making money. So the only way they can survive is through looting. That's why they would want really Uganda to attack Kenya so that they could survive on people's goods. Okay, in 10 minutes, I'm going to come back and we are going to talk about the other side. In case there is a conflict between Uganda and Kenya, how would it really play out? I'm going to give you facts and figures here. This is just an introduction. So 10 minutes, you're going to get me live here. So I hope to see you in 10 minutes. Let me go for a cup of coffee. Cup of tea. Coffee is not good for evening. Medically, you're supposed to take coffee by 2 p.m. Between 10 a.m. to 2 between 9 a.m. and 2 p.m. Anything beyond that is not coffee. Yeah. So let's have a break. I need to go and take some tea or coffee or anything I can come across, and then I jump back on a live. Be seeing you. Wow. Where's the waiter? Where is the waiter? Waiter. Give me something to drink. Yeah, coffee. Coffee. I have to drink. Coffee. Yeah, coffee. Coffee. Yeah, coffee. I need coffee, yeah. A bit of coffee. Get me also some little